Welcome back to a follow-up video. So this will be regarding the problem with the fillet. And as you can see over here, if I will enable the edge fillet, and I want this to be applied on the top edge and also over here, since you have this seam line added within the extruded circle, we're going to have the following update problem over here. So let's see. I also created the same part, and over here, as we can see, we have the seam line of that cylinder aligned differently. So if I will enter this sketch, this has been designed like this. So top down, we see the Y and X axis. And in this case, the pad will be like this. So again, Y and X. And that means that the seam line for the extrude circle will be over here. And that will not influence the edge fillet. As we can see, I can go add that edge fillet, set the radius to the same value, which would be 5, hit apply, and this will work. But within this part, we have the seam line over here. If I will enter the sketch, we see the alignment. Again, this will be Y and X, but now the part will be modeled like this. So because of that, we're going to have the seam line added over here. And we have the following problem. If I will try to apply the fillet, since we have that seam line over there, we're going to have the following problem. And this problem only occurs with the second pocket, in this case. If I will define the work object all the way over here, and as you can see, we have over here this circle, which has a radius of 25. So in this case, we only have that arc, but I can go ahead and we're going to see that this will be R25. We have the small one, which will be 12.5, and we have this segment. And if I will define this as the work object all the way over here, so without the bottom cut over here, even though the seam line is still over there, if I will try to fillet only this side, this will work. But as soon as I will undo that and I will enable the second cut on the bottom, which is exactly the same, so I converted that circle using convert entities, this one, this edge, and I link those, we're going to have the following problem over here. I also try not to use project 3D entities and draw new circles, but that will also cause problems. So if I will swap the fillet, so initially I want the one on the bottom and afterwards the one on the top, if I'm going to hit OK, it will have the same problem. So we have an internal error, operation cannot be performed. And this is the main problem within CATIA, is that extruded circles will have those wireframe added elements. As you can see within wireframe, we have the top circle, the bottom one, and we have those two lines. And if I will rotate around the viewport, those will always remain within that section. Even if I will go over here onto this circle, and I will define this as the work object, so we only have the second pad over here. If I will also deactivate this, so let's have this deactivated, and I want to deactivate all the childrens over here. This will be the sketch. If I will hide that, so I also need to enable this. So let me activate that one and only deactivate the pockets, but this is the current state. We see this sketch, since this was created with a circle, will have that vertex over here and one over there. And those will actually create that problem with the internal topology of the mesh by adding that additional segment. Now I try to replicate the same within 3D Experience, and we have this model over here. Again, we have the seam line added to the side. I can also go to shading with edges to make this more visible. And again, with the same sketches, with the same values, a radius of 5 will work over here because that seam line is not going straight to that fillet. But over here we have the one where we have the orientation just like previously within CATIA. And if I will try to use the fillet, something really odd will happen. So if I will just edge fillet the top one, if I'm going to hit preview, now if I will rotate, we're going to see that this cylinder still has the material normals. But if I'm going to hit preview and OK, we see what happens over here. So even though this is part design, not surface design, it will act like this. So we have an inner fill over here that tries to apply that fillet. So the difference between CATIA V5 and 3D Experience is that this will create this edge fillet, but we see how the geometry will be deformed in this case. If I will go on the edge fillet and I will apply the second one on the bottom, it will do the same over here on the bottom. As you can see, we have that inward shape. It's not that visible over here, but if I will change the shading, that will be a lot more visible. So we see how that material has the inverse surface set like this. Now, if you also want to replicate this, these are the sketches. So in this case, I also try to start with the first cylinder. We see radius of 25. This will have a pad, which will be 30, both sides. And the second sketch will be like this. So we have the same radius over here, and afterwards the following part. And I also created the same within SolidWorks. And as you can see, SolidWorks will not add additional seam lines to extruded circles. So again, we have the initial sketch, which is this one. This is not fully defined, but that shouldn't be any problem within CATIA as well. But over there, I tried to have everything fully defined. And we have this over here, diameter of 50. And afterwards, we're going to have those cuts. And as we can see, the fillet can be created over here without any problem. And if I will go within the wireframe, I will see that edge over there, but that's actually the edge. As I will rotate, that will also move. So it will not always remain in the middle like the one in CATIA. And this is the main difference why there are some topological problems within part design for CATIA, especially when using circles that are extruded, because those shouldn't have additional lines since we are modeling this within solid bodies. Now, if you also want to replicate this, either in CATIA or 3D Experience, let's just start a new part and see how that will go. So I will go on the X and Y plane. I will create over here the first one, which will be a radius of 25. I will create one over here to the side. And as you can see, if I will go with the one to the side, we're going to see that the orientation will be similar to this one. So this is the circle, this will be the profile. And with an orientation like this, on the X and Y, we're going to have that seam line problem added over there. So let's go ahead and continue this sketch. I also want this distance to be 75 between those. I noticed that within the new version, it's a lot faster to create this than within CATIA V5, since there are many features that will automatically appear, for example, offset and others. So if I want those to be tangent over here as well, within CATIA V5, by default, we need to do a lot of clicking, as you can see over here. So for people that are used with this, that isn't a problem, but otherwise it's quite tricky. So the radius will be 30 in this case. And now I want this to be offsetted 5 millimeters. I also want the same over here on the bottom, 5 millimeters. And now using the erase tool, I want this outer shape to be deleted. I will double click on this so we can better clear those sections. So we want all of those lines to be deleted. Over here I see that the outer circle was deleted. So let me just redo that. That means we don't have a coincidence over here between the circle and the endpoint. We need to have that coincident. And now let's redo those erases that one. I will just double click it. Okay, now that will be the profile. I want to add a fillet, so the fillet will be this one. Drag and drop over here, type a radius of 5, and this should be the profile. I will also check if there are any gaps, and as we can see, we're going to have some gap over here. So let's clean those. We have over here an additional section that will need to be deleted. Over here at the top as well. And let's check again if there are any gaps. No, now we're going to have to close profile, the inner and the outer profile. And if I will extrude this, I want this to be mirror extended to 20. And now I will create the cylinder over here in the middle. And this is the one which will cause problems. This will be radius 25. I want to have this padded. Length will be 30. And we have that edge appearing over here. And again, this is because of how we started the sketch. So it's quite difficult that we always need to compensate and make sure that those edges will not be in the important areas. In my opinion, that is not a good option. So now let's also add a coincidence over here. I also want this to be concentric. I will just delete that radius, so this will go to that radius as well. Over here I can just convert the entity. But the problem will be even if I'm using convert entities or not. So you can go ahead and try it yourself. But I will go ahead and just convert since it will be a lot faster. And now with the trim tool, I want to erase that, this, that, and not that one, the one on the bottom, that one. The one over here. And I also want this to be 37.5. You see over here that there is still the circle, so we don't need that. Okay, this will be the second sketch. This is closed, so we can use it for the cut. We want to cut 10 millimeters. And I'm going to redo the same over here on the bottom. In this case, I will just recreate those. So we are not going to use that convert for the circles. This will be 25. The other one over here. Let's just recreate this. I have this set to automatically add that radius. So in this case, I will just delete it and make those coincident. And let's see, the edge that we want to delete will be this one. So project that entity, hit normal 2, and now we can close this sketch. And with the trimming tool, I'm going to start deleting those sections that are not going to be used. Have an overdefined sketch. And if you want to, we can also add that value. And if I'm going to pocket that with 10, and now if I will apply the fillet, again, this will be set to 5. If I try to apply it over here on the top, this will directly go within this ambiguity, as we can see. Within the 3D experience, it inverses those normals of this surface and try to do that cut. But if I will add the second one on the bottom, this will add this one. So internal error operation cannot be performed. And this is why it's tricky, as I said previously. If I will just go to pocket 1, define this as the work object, we don't have the bottom cutout done, only one cutout. So this problem only occurs when we have two cutouts overlapping each other, but within different planes, as we can see over here. Because for some reason, this will work without any problem. And this is something that is hard to grasp and understand why exactly that happens. If I will go within 3D experience, and let's see, I will just delete that fillet. I will go after the first cut, and I want to define this as a work object. So the one on the bottom will no longer be done. And let's try to do the fillet over here. So within CATIA V5, that fillet was created. Let's just find the fillet. This will be the fillet within 3D Experience. Radius of 5, I'm gonna hit OK, and this again will work without any problem. But if I will set this also to be within the work object, we're gonna have an update error over here. And if I will update this locally, it will still work. So we still have that seam on the middle, and now if I will apply this edge over here, this will work, but again we have those problems with the surface, as we can see over here. This is no longer a surface that is part design. It's oddly shaped, and I'm really curious if I will export this as a step file, what exactly will be the output, because it's clearly that the mesh has some problems. So as we can see over here, I will save this. So let's initially just export this. So I want to export this as a step file. But we see over here that there are some error while launching the command. Okay, let's initially try to save this. So we have this saved. And now let's try to export it. Yeah, now it will work. So I want the file format to be a step file, which will be this one. I want this to go directly on the desktop. And let's see the file name. This will be, let's say, export. I'm gonna hit OK. To be exported free, OK. And let's just jump over here and have that open. I will use CATIA V5 for this. So I added over this export step file. Let's see how that will look. So actually, during the step file, it will look like this. So the step file will not have that problem, but we still have an additional line over here added to the model, as you can see. But within the viewport, it looks really weird over here. But the step file will actually have those good values. So if I will go over here and I want to measure the top radius, this will be 25, just like within the drawing. So this is mostly just an internal visualization problem over here, but it's still quite odd why this occurs. Okay, so I'm really curious if you try to replicate this part, you can follow along for the same exact dimensions, because this is why I prefer SolidWorks for part design. Since this doesn't have those additional problems, we can just add those fillets without any deformation within the viewport. Okay, so let me know in the comment section if you try to make this part and if you also encounter those problems. Also, I will position a similar video over here on the left side, and I will also add a subscribe button to the right. So that's it. Thanks for watching.